What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Brothers Geek Out channel. It's G-Man out here, and this is my spoiler review for Moon Knight episode 6, the last episode of this season, of this great season of this new character that was introduced to the MCU, Moon Knight. Absolutely amazing, the whole show. I mean, I've got some things that I'll talk about at the end, but overall, I definitely enjoyed this show. Loved everything about it. I guess at the end, I can talk about it a bit more. I've just been a little bit lost from the character. Not lost, I would say a little bit distant from the character. We have not got the full picture of who this character is, but Marvel played the long game. As we know, they played the long game, so we're going to get more of this character as we go through the years. But anyway, let's go through this final episode, episode 6. I believe the name was called episode 6, that's what Disney Plus said. But anyway, let's go through it. Look, the music, the soundtrack for this has been awesome, and I believe the opening scene music kind of plays it gives a sort of a starting balance of how the show is going to be, right, or how this episode is going to be. So this one starts with a tune called "The End" by El Grant, which is a catchy tune and whatnot. The story without an end. So in the lyrics of some of the music, one of the lyrics, it says "a story without any end," which I believe has been the story of this, right? When you get to the end, you'll see the end of the episode. It's a story without any end, and I think that's got to do with Mark Spector's life and the choices that he makes at the end with Moon Knight and Kongshu, and then with Steve, and we see finally Jake Lockley. So I feel that kind of relates, right? So I'm just gonna go through the episode with my notes here. Harrow, always very composed. I did love Ethan Hawke throughout this whole show. He was absolutely awesome as a villain, very composed, not the crazy type, believing in what he's doing. It's really awesome. I love that about him. He mentions, in the beginning of the episode, he mentions something to, when he's looking over Mark Spector's dead body, and he says, we need to see the cold light of death before we can see reality. And I think that quote is related to Mark. I think he needed to see the cold light of death before he sees the real reality. And I think the real reality was Mark needed to die before he realized he needed Stephen, how important Stephen was to his life. I mean, we saw that gradually, that relationship build between Mark and Stephen. But by the end, we saw what happened in episode 5, right? Stephen falls over and the Duat grabs him. I think I'm saying that right. Grabs him in the sand and whatnot. Stephen was in peace, right? And Mark was in peace. He was at the fields of reeds, and he decided to go back for Stephen because he realized how much he means to him, and that part of him is important to him in his life for him to move on. But we'll get to that in a sec. Harrow kills some guards. These were the souls that we saw in episode 5. So as this finally comes out of the whole realm that Stephen was in, the psych ward, and he goes back into the real world. Where Harrow and whatnot is, they get the statue of Ammit, and they're driving through, and they get stopped by the security guards. He kind of judges them and whatnot, and those are some of the souls that I think that Mark was seeing on the Duat. Mark and Stephen were seeing on the Duat when in episode 5. Taroet, she speaks to Layla, which they become. She becomes her avatar later on in the show, which is awesome. Harrow defeats the other gods. He beat them really quick. I mean, them other gods should have seen it from episode 2, I think it was, when Mark told them someone's trying to release Ammit, and I guess because of Kongshu and whatnot, they just didn't believe Mark, or they just wasn't on board then. Maybe they didn't see no judgment in Harrow at the time, but they got defeated quick, so we didn't see nothing from them. We didn't see shit from them. But anyway, then Harrow releases Ammit. And then Harrow was not balanced, so Ammit picked him because Ammit picked Harrow because he was loyal. So even Ammit was going against her own principles and whatnot, right? Because there was no balance in Harrow, but she picked him as an avatar because he was loyal and he was going to move forward with her plan and was able to free her and whatnot. So a bit contradictory towards her own principles and whatnot as a god, but you know, it is what it is. Later releases Kongshu. They have an interesting conversation. Kongshu asks her to be an avatar, Layla to be an avatar, but later on we know that actually really that wasn't his intentions. His intention was always with Mark, and more importantly with Jake Lockley, which we'll get to in a second. But that was an interesting one. Layla was not interested at all. She does not trust Kongshu based on what Mark's trust as well, which I think was important throughout the show. Like the relationship between Layla and Mark was gradually, we got to know obviously, and then also, you know, Layla was, by the end of this, we even with Tarawet, as she speaks to Layla when she becomes an avatar, she explains to her that she met her father. Her father's at peace at the fields of reeds, and I think because of that, she was able to forgive Mark. But we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Layla was not having it with Kongshu saying, "I'm going to join you and be your avatar," or whatnot. Kongshu was saying that Mark was distracted by protecting Layla, and I think Layla kind of sees value in that. Fight between Amit and Kongshu was interesting. I didn't expect that. We're going to see some gods fighting and whatnot. Amit with the crocodile and Kongshu looking like a bird and whatnot. Pretty awesome. Awesome kind of battle between them. The fight between Mark at the Fields of Reed. Then he goes back to the Mark at the Fields of Reed. He gave up peace to reconcile with Stephen. So that was interesting. He was there. He was at peace. You know, Tarawih was saying you will feel no loneliness, you'll feel no sadness, you're here at peace now. But he knew without Stephen, there is no peace. There's no sense of normality in his life. And Stephen has helped him out in his life to get him where he is today, to live a normal life, you know, especially overcoming all that trauma that he's gone through. He finally realized Stephen is a big part of his life and he was not going to leave him like that. So that was quite emotional. Stephen saved Mark from being alone. Stephen was the only real superpower Mark ever had because he created Stephen to keep him away from the darkness in his life. That was an emotional speech when Mark said that to Stephen, when he was saying that you're my true superhero power that I've had. I thought that was emotional, and it was a traumatized individual who's gone through so much, and Stephen helped him get through it, even though Stephen is himself. Absolutely emotional. I love that. This is him loving part of himself. You know, himself is that energy that you give to yourself, and you hear people talk about it's like loving yourself, giving yourself that positive energy. Bruce Lee has a quote about it: you should never talk bad about yourself or never have any bad thoughts about yourself. Even though it's easy to happen, people do talk bad about themselves or disappointed in themselves and whatnot. But these things could affect your life. And this was something where Mark finally accepted and loved this part of himself, which was Stephen, and I loved that. That was very emotional. What else we got here? This is him loving part of himself. Yeah, the Gate of Osiris, who was the god of resurrection and rebirth and loads of other stuff, opened up, and I think it opened because his heart was fully balanced. And the speech he made to Mark, Tarawih called Osiris a softie. So obviously that was touching to Osiris as well, which is why he opened up the gate for Mark to be able to go back to the real world. Kongshu felt Mark come back, so as soon as Mark came back to the real world, Kongshu felt him. There was that little scene between them. Kongshu was saying, "I feel your pain," right? Which was, and it went to the scene of, you know, Mark's brother in the cave. It went to the scene of Mark's death. That was his pain. Talking about, said that death and then life. And when he spoke about if you want to live, it was Layla. Layla was his life, right? So that was emotional. And then Mark and Stephen come as a package deal. I thought that was awesome. They finally made it clear to Kongshu, like, if you want one of us, you've got to take both of us, right? So let's make a deal. You can't, you know, it's not just one of us now, it's both of us. They've made peace with each other, Mark and Stephen. So if you're going to take one, you come in with both. And Kongshu made the deal saying that I will let you guys free once we get rid of Amit. And I thought that was interesting. And Stephen made the negotiations because I think he's just more educated from that perspective. But now they're using each other's talents, which I think is awesome. Kongshu said, "I'll release you both." But that was interesting. Kongshu said, "I will release you both. You have my word. Both of you two." But he did say nothing about Jake. And Mark and Stephen are still unaware of Jake. And that's what I find interesting. Kongshu knew that I picked you to be my punisher, you know, the vengeance of my Amit as well, my avatar. But I think really Kongshu from the whole beginning knew about Jake and knew that Jake is the perfect fit for his avatar. So it's interesting from then he said, "Yes, I will release you two only, you have my word." But but he did not release Jake, and he knew that from the start. That was freaking awesome. The switch between Mark and Steven is awesome. The way they're doing it now is so cool. It's like a tag team. It's like they're two different characters, which they are, but they're the same person. But the way they're tag teaming in and out with each other was freaking awesome. What happens next is Tarawet knows Layla's father, so Tarawet becomes Layla's avatar. Layla becomes Tarawet's avatar. They talk to each other. Tarawet tells her that she knows Layla's father, which I think was emotional to Layla. Told her she took her father to the field of reeds. Tells Layla her father found peace at the end. This is what I think it tells Layla. It found peace at the end. She can forgive Mark for that because she had that against Mark. But knowing that her father found peace and hearing that from Tarawet, I think that kind of can tell her that she can finally forgive Mark and move on. Layla becomes a Scarlet Scarab, which is originally supposed to be a dude, Abdul Faroul, the protector of Egypt, but she fits in perfect. She looked awesome. The costume was awesome. I thought she looked freaking wicked. So that was awesome. That was really fun. Then Moon Knight goes flying over to Cairo to go after Harrow. He looked awesome. The way he was flying, I mean, just so cool. Souls, then you see Harrow obviously Amit was released and everyone was getting judged. All these souls were kind of feeding on Amit, made Amit huge, size of the pyramids, which was sick. Amit and Kongshu were fighting, and you can see the difference between them. Like Kongshu seems a little bit like a villain-ish. You still don't know fully, but what he doesn't agree with Amit is like you take away choice. You know, Amit is trying to it's assuming or just based on what someone could do, it is taking away their soul. Whereas Kongshu is like giving choice. People still have a choice. People can still change. So that's the difference between them. But but Kongshu still 100% good guy, man. And we'll talk about it in a bit. But based with Jake Lockley and whatnot. The battle with the full moon was awesome. We didn't get no Moon Knight in the last 2 episodes, which is cool because it's storytelling, story building, but it's great to see Moon Knight finally. Nice battle at the end with Harrow, big moon, full moon in the background, freaking awesome. I loved everything about it. The switch between Steven and Mark was awesome. Steven's fighting abilities is wicked. He seemed like a very close quarter, almost like a Bruce Lee sort of swagger with his nice suit. With the sticks and the elbows and the knees, I was like, he looks awesome, flipping around and whatnot. And Mark, when in his suit, still got the close combat, but I feel like he's more weaponized. He's more distance, throwing like the moon crescent knives and whatnot. You can see a difference in their fighting style. So awesome. Like I say, Steven, there was one scene where he just kind of like almost done that little swagger, fix up his suit, Bruce Lee type of look, which I thought was wicked. I loved it. So Steve finally has the abilities to fight, which is great. Then what we see is what I thought was awesome was there was a scene where Harrow was fighting Moon Knight and what's her name, Layla, and then there was a van being attacked and whatnot. Layla went and saved it, and the little girl says to her, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" Which I thought was awesome. Obviously, that's talking about the Scarlet Scarab. And whatnot, but that was pretty awesome, little inspiration for her. And then what we saw, which I think we saw in episode 1, was Jake Lockley come out, right? When Mark is in true trouble and he's in a position where he needs help or he's gonna die, Jake comes out. Jake is the more raw, just savage, basically. We haven't even seen it. I want to see it. They're not even showing it. I mean, they teased it in episode 1. I believe that was him in episode 1 where he went into a different thing and he bossed up everyone and killed them and whatnot. Same thing with this. Same thing. Mark blanks out and Lockley comes out. Even Layla was like, what the hell was that? Who the hell was that? Like, freaking awesome. They teased him so much. And we'll get more of him later. And he's going to be violent. I think he's going to be violent. I mean, he looks violent. We ain't seen none of his combat. We just see bodies, basically. So I'm looking forward to what they do with him in the future. But so much more to grow with this character. They had to trap Amit in a human body as it will be more vulnerable. So they trapped Amit into Harrow. Then after they go back to the psych ward and confront him, and I think that was Mark's character in his head, confronting Harrow to confirm he's not crazy. Like going back to the psych ward to confirm that I'm not crazy, right? I made peace with my characters. I made peace with everything that's going on. I'm not crazy. Starts right at the beginning, and then it goes back. It starts right at the beginning of the show where they're in bed. He's in bed. Mark's in bed, and but now he's acknowledged Stephen, and it plays the tune. It plays the what's the tune? "A Man Without Love" by Elgibert Hupperdin. Sorry, man. But anyway, the original tune that the show started off with in episode 1, in bed, is exactly how it ends. And I thought that was awesome. They were both peace with each other. They had 2 goldfish, now 1 for each character, I guess. He was still locked to the bed, which was interesting, and still had the sand and everything, which I think was interesting. But yeah, it ends there with them guys. And then what we see is Harrow in a psych ward now. You know, he sees this coffee, he sees sand, so he's all hallucinating and all that sort of stuff. Someone comes to take him, and someone speaking Spanish, and it's Jake Lockley. Takes him away. You see some nurses on the floor dead. I mean, Jake Lockley just seems like a violent dude. Like I'm saying now, it's Kongshu. How violent is Kongshu, right? How violent is Jake Lockley? If he's killing innocent people, then there's something wrong there. Or if these nurses that he's hurting, they must be evil, they must have done evil, and they're being punished. Okay, that's something, but it just seems raw. He just doesn't seem like he's got any values to be a superhero yet. And this is where I feel like, you know, where the show's kind of ended us to be like, oh, what's going on next? He puts him in a limo. You know, Jake Lockley in the show, in the comics, was a driver and whatnot. He wore the hat. He looked really cool. He wore that, what do you call those hats? Like some beret type of hats. He looked like comic book accurate. It was quite awesome. He was a limo driver, and then Kongshu knows about, so and then he shoots Harrow. I mean, Kongshu was there in his white suit. He looked cool, and Kongshu made it very clear that I was after Jake, like, meet my avatar. This was who I was after the whole time. He knew from the beginning when he first took over Mark Spector's body and mind. He knew that there was something interesting, and he saw Jake in that, and he's like, "You're my avatar. I need Jake," and he knew that from the very beginning. So yeah, Jake came out, shot Harrow. That's exactly what Kongshu wanted. The limo had the plate numbers saying Spectre and whatnot. Very interesting, man. That's the way he finished it, man. I thought this show was awesome. Like, just to give a quick review of the overall show, I am still a little bit like lost in the sense like where they're taking this. You know, you just tease Jake, but of course Marvel play the long game in everything they do, right? So we're gonna see more of him, which is gonna be awesome. Looking forward to it. It's just the fact that they left it like the way they left it. It was still kind of like, damn, like you just left it like that, like I don't know, like we've got so much more to see, because Mark and Steven don't even know now. They think Kongshu's gone. Little do they know about Jake. And then Kongshu's still around. So overall, I mean, it's a great show. I think the connection might have lost a little bit. I thought episode 5 was probably the best episode for me personally, just because of the origin story we got, the traumaticness we got. I think phase 4 is all about traumatic shit that they go through, man. We saw that with Moon Knight, Spider-Man. I'm not going to mention any other films because there might be spoilers and whatnot, but new Marvel content come out. Even with WandaVision, just traumatic shit that everyone's going through. Yeah, episode 5 was my favorite. The Moon Knight, listen, those scenes were the best. They were so cool. Listen, we got a new character in the MCU. It's awesome. If Jake Lockley is this raw, what happens? Is he really a villain? Or sorry, a superhero? Is he like the Punisher? Is he like a vigilante sort of thing? Because he's only punishing people who've done bad. So is he in that realm? Does he fall there? I don't know. We'll see. Who does he cross with in the future? I was hoping in some weird way that Blade will show up, just because Blade showed up in the end of Eternals and Blade was in London with Black Knight. I was like, well, Jake's in London. Sorry, they're in London. Maybe you know, he'll show up there. But that was just me hoping for the best. But it'll be interesting to see where they take him, because Jake ain't he ain't playing around, man. So I can't wait till they take this, who they team him up with. But I guess we're gonna have to wait. I mean, find out when season 2 is out. But overall, great show. Oh my god, it's been a journey. And yeah, until the next one. Cool, me and Kids will talk about more on the podcast. But until then, catch you later. Peace.